country. And a lot of people do have guns, but most of the people are, you know, northerners who use them for hunting, you know, and or whose hobby is just, you know, shooting at a track. So that was a tough thing. It's Oxford's Something About Death, a great book, by the way. There was a story about that happened during one of the depressions or whatever in England, and you know, 16, 17 something, and you know, there was a family with 3 kids, and they were struggling with money, and they heard their parents fighting about it. So the 3 kids, aged maybe 11, 9, and 4, they all hung themselves in the kids' room. And what they wrote down was a note to their parents that we did it so we wouldn't be so many for you to take care of. The ultimate power is to denounce all power. You know, that guy, for example, in Finland, he was apolitical, you know, like everything. Asexual, apolitical, anti-everything. So he was just basically trying to make himself as a blank canvas, which is extremely hard to do if you're living in a loving family. So that must be a horrendous journey he's been going through, and all the pain that he's been going through, to actually cross that border into insanity and do all those horrible things he did. You know, it's... But also, the good thing about humanity in general is the fact that, you know, terrible crises and terrible catastrophes, they do appear to have the impact on people, that people become closer to each other, as they start valuing about life a bit more after that. And neighbors who hated them, you know, hated each other previously, they can even hold hands occasionally. So it seems that a lot of people are so self-centered that it does take a catastrophe to all of a sudden for them to realize that there is life outside of themselves and outside of their families, and universal concerns, and a thing called universal compassion and love and hope. I've been a vegetarian for a long time. I was a vegetarian when I was a teenager for about 7 years, but then when touring, it became extremely hard. Places like Portugal or in Belgium, it's hard to get proper vegetarian food, and so I started eating fish again and chicken. Then I made a deal with my dear friend Lee Dorian from a band called Cathedral. Became a good friend, you know, a couple of years back. He's really adamant vegetarian, and I just gave him like a birthday present. I said, yeah, okay, I'm going to be a vegetarian from now on. This has been the last year and a half. I'm nearly vegan, but I do, you know, I'm like a vegan who eats chocolate. So I'm trying to avoid dairy products as well, and eat. Well, I'm nearly fruitarian as well, so I try to skip all the rice and bread and everything. But it's just I'm trying to find the right diet for myself to stay healthy on tour. You know, it's very hard to, you know, when you're traveling a lot, it's very hard to live on pizza for months and months on end. You know, it's just, it doesn't work. So Lindale, he does fish, but no chicken, no red meat. Gas is an omnivore. He eats everything. So, he does a few asanas every now and then, but it's just it's basically a matter of also just to be able to sing, because you know when you sing, when you play gigs, you have to breathe through the tummy, and you know if you eat meat, you know digestion is so very slow that it's very, you know, you can't use all your capacity as a singer. So it's good to eat just a lot of greens, and that's why I do. It's not, you know, I'm still wearing leather stuff, and I'm not, you know, not really politically involved in that. You know, it's just, let's say it makes things simpler, and it makes me feel better, so that's why I do it. But I've never done any, you know, illegal driving or whatever, so I don't drive. I use taxis. Just hail a cab. But no, I'm not very environmental when it comes to that. I don't, you know, you can do basically anything if you start thinking about it. if you start thinking about all the stuff, you know, humanity is doing to the environment. It must be very hard for kids to learn who to trust and who not. But, you know, with all the information in the internet, and then just if you flick through different news channels, everybody's got a different take on the same story. It's like, who do you believe? And then all the urban legends floating about, all that stuff, you know. It wasn't like that back in the day. What is the dark side? Well, because, you know, let's say that if we grew up, let's say if we go to school and we learn about our history, let's say most of the most amazing art, visual art, has been done by very religious people. And most of that art is really, really dark. If you did think about Dante, for example, or John Milton, or a lot of those people, you know, they had a really strong relationship with God, and a very Christian God. And still they poured out all the Gothic imagery that all the anti-God people use nowadays, more or less. You know, I think it's just imagery, you know, anyway. You know, it's just word association, word games, you know. The word God means so different things to different people that it's nice to play around with them. You know, as they say in the Bible, isn't it? Or do they say that in the Bible? But they're always saying that the greatest trick of Satan is that, you know, he's wearing so many masks that people still do think that he doesn't, you know, exist. Maybe, you know, the God people are worshipping, you know, is the true evil. At least the Vatican is. You know, when a religion is based around money, then it's not. It doesn't have anything, you know, with anything to do with spirituality. That's what I say. You know, what did Jesus do in the temple back in the day? And at the end of the day, one of the main sins is, you know, the main deadly sins is hatred and aggression. What did Jesus do? He became extremely agitated and extremely anxious, you know, of the Pharisees, and he, you know, nearly destroyed the church there. And then he was crucified for his sins, I guess, and ours. So it's a very complicated myth, the whole Bible, you know, the Old Testament and the New, if you think of all those things. And I don't have an extremely, you know, great need to find myself a savior. You know, I don't need that. You know, my savior is all around all the time. You know, it's the world around, the people around it, the stories they tell, and it's the whole thing. That's what keeps me going. You know, if it'd be just dark and empty and there would have been anything left, it would be just a void. Then it'd be pretty miserable. But and you know, the constant battle when we're talking about, you know, we're talking about issues of morality. You know, it's very interesting. You know, as what you said about people pretending to be, you know, God's disciples, doing very much the opposite that's taught in New Testament. But also then, you know, there's you know, the vengeful, hateful God of Old Testament. He was a tough guy as well, or was, or is. I don't know. Kalevala was that's the book, and we had actually there's one old guy called Väinämöinen who played a lyre type of an instrument called kantele, and he sang songs and everybody listened. But he was the old wise man, and there's a lot of stories. There's like, you know, Hades. There's like Karen, the similar sort of like the river of death that you pass, and there's a lot of similarities. And my knowledge on the Finnish culture is very limited. It's a tiny country, nomadic country. I'm not sure, you know, it's been mixed with Vikings because we're not the true Vikings in that sense. Then so there's a lot of Russian influence, I guess. But you know, that's basically what, you know, that's what Christianity did. You know, they came on over and they built on all of the old holy places. They built their churches upon, you know. So it is a rape of the culture, in a certain sense. And you know, imagine Pan, the great god Pan, that actually being Satan. Yeah. You know, and Santa Claus, joulupukki in Finnish, which means Christmas goat. You know, that started from a tradition of actually like guys knocking on the door like on Halloween, with wearing goat masks and just going in and ravaging the place. pillaging, raping, and looting kind of a thing. You know, just being the rock and rollers without the music. And so there's a lot of weird cultural things, especially when it comes to Christian world. You know, they took so many elements out of. But that's the thing for me. I don't fight against it. I find it fascinating how human mind